Now this video is probably going to be a little bit short, and it's more of a discussion than it is an open demonstration of any particular technique. What I'm going to talk about is the use of uniform surfaces. Now, we know that NURB stands for Non-Uniform Rational B-Spline, and that refers to the fact that a NURB surface can be non-uniform. It can have parameterization that is more dense in one area than another. In our case, when we are modeling, we're going to have a much easier time working with our models, skinning them, texturing them, making any sort of adjustments to them whatsoever. We'll have an easier time reading the models and seeing how the surface flows if we keep our surfaces uniform. As we model in this class, especially when we're doing character modeling, all of our surfaces are going to be kept uniform because later on they're going to be easier for us to rig up, easier to texture, easier to work with in all terms of the process. Now, what is the difference between a uniform and a non-uniform surface? It boils down to how the underlying detail, the isoparms, are lined up. For example, I can take this NURBS plane, and I can add all sorts of isoparms to it. So I can hold down the Shift key, drag out all these isoparms. And I'll put just one right in here. And now let's grab some isoparms in the opposite direction. And let's insert these. Boom. We have a whole bunch of new isoparms. Great. So we have more detail. What can we do with it? Well, now we could sculpt if we wanted to. So let's see. I'll pull. So we'll just kind of pull on the surface a little bit. So there we go. Now, later on, if I wanted to attach this to another surface, I would need my isoparms to line up if I want a nice, clean attachment. But, let's say I create a surface on my own. What if I'm over here and I have to make a new plane? How do I go about making sure that all of my isoparms align properly? It's going to be virtually impossible unless I'm working with uniform surfaces. So, very easy. You can take any surface that you have and make it uniform. You can go to Edit NURBS, Rebuild Surfaces. And we'll set this to uniform, and I'm going to switch on Keep CVs. This is something we'll be doing a lot once we get into character modeling, because this takes any CVs that you've tweaked to make sure their positions stay the same. We'll go ahead and click Rebuild, and there we go. Now look at the detail. See how it's nicely lined up across the surface? In fact, let me undo. I'll duplicate this surface, and I'll hit G on this surface. Take a look at the difference. Which one is easier for you to follow, easier for you to see the contours, the edge flow all along the surface, those isoparms? That's a little bit messy. It's going to be very hard to make attachments. Here, we have nice uniform edges. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 spans all the way across. So we could easily grab this surface, rebuild it to, say, 12 by 12, like so. And now it would be very easy for us to simply attach these two surfaces together, because now we know exactly how many spans there are. This is only one example of why it's going to be important to use uniform surfaces. The big thing is for modeling workflow, it's just going to be easier for you to read the surface to make sure that everything is flowing properly. There are some external packages that you can export to that prefer or sometimes exclusively work with uniform surfaces. Used to be that Pixar RenderMan only accepted uniform surfaces. That's changed these days. It'll take non-uniform surfaces, but calculations are going to be faster with uniform. So, again, a quick discussion, just a bit of a why we do it sort of thing. It's just so that we will have an easier time as modelers later on for rigging. When we skin the object up, we'll have an easier time if everything is nice and uniform and aligned to one another. It'll give us nice flow from one patch to another as long as we make sure that we have uniform alignment from one patch going right into the other. For texturing, it's going to help to have a uniform surface for all of these reasons. And so that's going to wrap things up for this discussion. Thanks a lot.